This is the kind of stranger-than-fiction spy tactic that was not at all fiction. It was really happening.
These are contracts for my next 3 films. I will sign them today, but I want you to have a threesome with me and my assistant.
More than 80 women, according to the New York Times, coming forward publicly with accusations against arguably the most powerful man in Hollywood.
You must come here now.
No.
You have to go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want to.
Go to the bathroom. Come here.
Ronan is the son of Mia Farrow and Woody Allen, a child prodigy who was accepted into Yale Law School at just 15.
I was able to tell this story because people were brave as hell, and they are still being brave as hell and refusing to shut up.
Matt's gotten to interview almost everybody who's anybody in the world of politics.
How are you? Good to see you.
Please welcome the Republican nominee for president, Donald Trump.
You admitted that there were these CIA secret facilities. Okay.
So what? Why is that not within the law?
The head of Amnesty International says secret sites are against international law.
Well, we just disagree with him.
There's a guy I'd like to really thank here that people don't thank enough, but there's a kindly, wonderful, gentle man that we all deeply love. His name is Harvey Weinstein. A little rough around the edges, but a heart of gold. And we do love you.
Harvey Weinstein, the king of Hollywood, a mogul with 81 Oscars to his name.
I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein and everybody at Miramax Films for their undying support of me.
Thank you to Harvey. Harvey, thank you for killing whoever you had to kill to get me up here today.
Finally, I'd like to thank Harvey Weinstein.
This was an ensemble film, and it took an ensemble team to make it. I want to thank at Disney, Michael Eisner and Joe Roth, who've given me great latitude and great support. At Universal, Edgar Brofman, Ron Meyer, Stacy.
When a cryptic series of tweets from former actress Rose McGowan alluding to an alleged rape by Weinstein caught the attention of Ronan and his boss. At the time, Ronan was a fresh-faced reporter working for NBC News.
My own sister was part of the history of women who came forward and refused to shut up even when people around them told them to.
A new campaign has emerged on social media known as the Me Too campaign, where women of all stripes are sharing their experiences with sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But that feeling that now other women have that says, you know what, okay, they had the courage to speak up, I'm gonna have the courage, and we're all gonna talk about it because we need to end this.
It was a movement that swept the country.
I was fortunate to come at this story in a cultural moment where brave sources were starting to come forward and chip away at the dam, and where people were saying enough.
I've been talking about being a sexual assault survivor for over 2 decades now. I saw Me Too and my arm went numb. I thought it was all about me. And when I realized it, literally hundreds of thousands of people, men and women, talking about being a part of this unfortunate club.
During this time, a female producer had me do a nude lineup. After that degrading and humiliating lineup, the female producer told me I should use the naked photos of myself as inspiration for my diet.
He's one of the biggest names in comedy, successful in just about everything he's done.
Louis C.K. Louis.
Thank you very much. Well, I won an Emmy just now, so.
And the Emmy goes to, from the States, one of my good mates, Mr. Louis C.K.
This is the 3rd Emmy win for Louis C.K. He's won 2 tonight.
But Louis C.K.'s accusers say he abused his power to commit sexual misconduct.
Comedic partners Dana Min Goodman and Julie Wolof telling the New York Times in 2002 they were invited into the comedian's hotel room for a nightcap. He proceeded to take all of his clothes off and get completely naked and started masturbating, Goodman says, we were paralyzed. 5 women all sharing similar stories not verified by NBC News. According to The Times, in 2005, comedian Rebecca Corey says she was asked by Louis C.K. if he could pleasure himself in front of her. It happened, Corey says, during the filming of a pilot. When she declined, his face got red and he told me he had issues.
His good friend and colleague Louis C.K. has been accused of and has admitted to some lewd acts involving women. What was the impact on you when you heard not only the accusations but his admission?
Stunned, I think. You know, look, I don't want to make this like Louis was the only one in the business. Like, it's not. It's endemic. You give your friends a benefit of the doubt. And I think if you talk to women, they're in a very difficult position, and you get mad at yourself too for laughing it off or for thinking that didn't happen. And it's hard.
Oh, here's my question, because I mean, some women in the industry have said, oh, this is an open secret.
Right.
But in this case, you said you were stunned.
I was stunned,
You hadn't heard that.
No. I heard, so a year ago, I was doing a podcast with David Axelrod, and a man in the audience asked me about it. But in the context of that, and I hadn't heard at that point of any of it. So I was, you know, he said, what do you think about this allegations against Louis C.K.? And my first response was, what? And then joke, and as he kept going, I was like, look, I know this is very serious, but I know Louis. He's always been a gentleman, you know, to me, which, again, it speaks to the blindness that I think a man has, which is like, hey, he's a good guy. What are you talking about? You know, it's one of those things. It's another one of those endemic, systemic, complex problems that, you know, we all haven't had the urgency for, and certainly myself included. I hope it changes.
It was a spellbinding summer surprise.
Major change at Fox News. CEO Roger Ailes has handed in his resignation.
Roger Ailes, now 76, has been an influential figure for decades in Republican politics as an advisor and strategist to Presidents Nixon, Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. He created Fox News 20 years ago and built it into the most-watched cable news channel.
A lawsuit that helped bring down a titan of television. Roger Ailes, the founder and force behind Fox News, accused of sexually harassing one of his network's on-air stars.
Fox News megastar Megyn Kelly is reportedly claiming she was sexually harassed by her boss at Fox News Channel 10 years ago. New York Magazine reports that Kelly is saying that Fox News Channel CEO Roger Ailes made unwanted sexual advances when she was a young correspondent at Fox. At the Republican convention, we caught up with journalist Gabriel Sherman, who broke the story.
It means that Roger Ailes, the larger-than-life head of Fox News, his future is now in doubt. The Murdoch family that owns Fox News has given him an ultimatum that he needs to resign from the company by August 1st, or he would be fired for cause.
Megyn Kelly's allegations were reportedly made to a team of lawyers hired by Fox to investigate the claims that 76-year-old Ailes sabotaged the career of former Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson because she rebuffed his advances.
In her skirts and dresses, Carlson was on the set of the popular morning show Fox and Friends, where she was co-anchor for 7 years.
Start from scratch. Good morning, everyone.
In her lawsuit against Ailes, Carlson alleged that behind the sunny morning show exterior was a hostile workplace, more reminiscent of a locker room than a newsroom.
You read the headlines since men are so great.
She names her co-anchor, Steve Doocy, in the lawsuit.
I mean, she talks about how he demeaned her. He pulled her arm to get her to be quiet in various moments.
She did go to Roger Ailes to complain about the behavior of her co-host on Fox and Friends. He was not a sympathetic ear.
No, instead of having Roger Ailes say, oh, we'll be sure to do something about that, he lashes out at her, and he calls her a man-hater, and he says she should try to get along with the boys.
Carlson claims that shortly after she complained, Ailes demoted her, moving her off the morning show to a less desirable time slot in the afternoon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gretchen Carlson, and this is The Real Story.
But it gets worse. In Carlson's complaint, she says Ailes then began sexually harassing her, making comments in one-on-one meetings like, "I think you and I should have had a sexual relationship a long time ago," adding that sometimes problems are easier to solve that way. When she rejected his advances, Carlson says Ailes retaliated, sabotaging her career. But Gretchen Carlson wasn't about to fade away without a fight.
A lot of the people I interviewed about Gretchen thought, well, Gretchen is somebody who always does her homework. She's super prepared. So she would not have launched this without having the goods.
She starts to tape her meetings with Roger. And it's at this point where he sort of begins to say things to her that she includes in the lawsuit later.
The man who ruled Fox News like an empire, who even had a camera trained outside his office to see who was approaching, was walking into a trap.
It is ironic that here's this person who's so famously paranoid about people trying to get him, who then is
brought down by
having someone just record him very simply with her iPhone.
Last June, with Carlson still quietly gathering evidence, Ailes abruptly fired her. 2 weeks later, she shot back with her explosive lawsuit. Fox News' dirty laundry was now its own top story.
Fox News Chairman Roger Ailes is responding to a lawsuit filed by lawyers for Gretchen Carlson.
So what did you think when you heard this? I've worked for Roger Ailes for 20 years, all right? Best boss I've ever had. I stand behind Roger 100%.
As soon as Carlson filed her lawsuit against Ailes, Fox News parent company 21st Century Fox launched an internal investigation. And what the law firm conducting the investigation found was at least a dozen women willing to talk, some of whom had strikingly similar stories about Roger Ailes. The crisis came to a crescendo when one woman who was noticeably absent from the Ailes chorus of defenders finally spoke up.
Megyn Kelly.
The highest profile female anchor at Fox News had also been allegedly harassed by Roger Ailes. Listen, it's hard to say no to that.
Just this week, Megyn Kelly appeared on Good Morning America, describing in detail what she says happened to her.
It culminated in a physical attempt to be with me, which I rejected in his office, and then I contacted a lawyer. He tried to kiss me 3 times. So I rejected that, and when I rejected that, he asked me when my contract was up.
Just 2 weeks after she filed her lawsuit, Ailes arrived at work to find he had been locked out of the company he created. The next day, it was announced he was resigning as chief executive. Roger Ailes has vehemently denied all of the allegations of sexual assault against him. But in perhaps the truest testament to the Herculean feat Carlson accomplished, some of those familiar Fox faces who supported Ailes have now offered her an apology.
We begin tonight with the bombshell announcement from Fox News that their biggest star is out amid growing reports of sexual harassment that sparked an advertiser revolt. Bill O'Reilly, the anchor of the cable network's most popular show, will not be returning after a 2-decade run. The announcement coming with O'Reilly on a planned vacation. He was seen today shaking hands with the Pope at the Vatican.
Best boss I've ever had. I stand behind Roger 100%.
Caution, you are about to enter the no spin zone.
No spinning it tonight. The king of cable news dethroned. Bill O'Reilly, the host of cable's most popular show for 16 years, out at Fox News in the wake of that growing sexual harassment scandal. 21st Century Fox announcing that after a thorough and careful review of the allegations, the company and Bill O'Reilly have agreed that Bill O'Reilly will not be returning to the Fox News channel.
O'Reilly was forced out of his top-rated Fox News show, The O'Reilly Factor, over allegations of sexual harassment. Let me start with what's transpired over the last 6 months, the first time we're hearing from you. What was the exact reason you were given, or your representatives were given, by people at Fox News for your firing?
There was no reason. They had a contractual clause that they could pay me a certain amount of money and not put me on the air. And they exercised that.
But why did they exercise that? What was the reason they said they were exercising that?
There was a sponsor boycott engineered by Media Matters, the radical left group, and the sponsor boycott unsettled some people at Fox News.
You were accused of sexual harassment. You said at the time you did absolutely nothing wrong.
Correct.
Do you stand by that?
I do.
And so did you provide Fox News any evidence, any information that you think could have changed their mind as to what you were guilty or not guilty of?
My legal team was very aggressive in putting forth our point of view, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
I want to put this in perspective timing-wise. You were fired about 10 months after Roger Ailes was let go.
Correct.
By the network over allegations of sexual harassment. So the network understood the subject matter. You were probably the last guy in the world that they wanted to fire because you were the guy that the ratings and the revenues were built on. You carried that network on your shoulders for a lot of years. So doesn't it seem safe to assume that the people at Fox News were given a piece of information or given some evidence that simply made it impossible for you to stay on at Fox News?
That's a false assumption. There were a lot of other business things in play at that time and still today that 21st Century was involved with. And it was a business decision that they made. But there isn't any
But you don't let your number one guy go unless you have information that you think makes him...
That's not true. There are billions of dollars at stake in business deals, and they made a business decision that they could, you know, possibly prosper more without me. It was as simple as that. It was a business decision.
Did you ever send a lewd text or email to another employee at Fox News?
No.
Did you ever have any human resources cases brought against you?
Not in 42 years.
The New York Times.
Wait. In 42 years, all right, I've been in this business. I've worked for 12 companies. Not one time did I have any interaction with HR, any complaints filed against me.
The New York Times reported that up to 5 women had come forward over the years and complained about sexual harassment at your hands, and that Fox News actually made deals with those women, financial settlements amounting to about $13 million for their silence. Is that accurate?
I don't know, because I'm not privy to what Fox News did. After Roger Ailes went down, there was a flood of lawsuits, with dozens of people named. And the company did what the company did.
But you've read the reports.
Wait. Every company in this country, including this one, Comcast, has these lawsuits. Every one. Now, some of them are valid and some of them are not. They settled them for a number of reasons. Now, as an employee, I don't really have any say in that matter.
But were you aware of those 5 women?
I was aware, sure.
And so why didn't you sue those women if you say you did absolutely nothing wrong?
Because you can't win those lawsuits. If you're a public figure, you cannot win them. Sarah Palin is the latest example. And I could do that, but the collateral damage of these lawsuits, the press frenzy, every allegation is a conviction. Every allegation in this area is a conviction. They don't look for the truth.
But think about those 5 women and what they did. They came forward and filed complaints against the biggest star at the network they worked at. Think of how intimidating that must have been, how nerve-wracking that must have been. Doesn't that tell you how strongly they felt about the way they were treated by you?
Well, it's not just me. Those lawsuits involve many other people, not just me. So I don't know. I'm not going to speculate about intent or why people did what they did, but you don't have this story, Lauer, correct? The lawsuits involved many people.
But you were also named.
I was named in a few of them. A few of them.
Let me put a period on it this way, Bill, by asking you, over the last 6 months since your firing, have you done some soul searching? Have you done some self-reflection? And have you looked at the way you treated women that you think now or think about differently now than you did at the time?
My conscience is clear. What I have done is organized a legal team to get the truth to the American people. So if you go to Newsmax.com or BillO'Reilly.com, you will see an article about one of the accusers of me okay, who was arrested for filing a false police report. You will see that article. And I want people to read it and make up their own mind.
And that happened back in 2015, and I just want to mention the two things can be mutually exclusive. She could have filed a false report in 2000, and I don't. She could have filed a false report in 2015 and still be telling the truth about you.
Look, anything's possible, all right, but it goes to credibility, doesn't it? All right? If you look at the in totality, this was a hit job. A political and financial hit job.
Is this a vast left-wing conspiracy?
No, vast, and don't be sarcastic.
Well, I mean, but you know, I was the one that Hillary Clinton said that to here 20 years ago.
The great story here for anybody willing to find it and write about it and explain it is this vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
We're going to be able to prove what we say. There are more things to come. All right? This was Media Matters, the Bonner Group, Color of Change, organizing sponsor boycotts to bring down Fox News and me.
Were there any self-inflicted wounds here, Bill?
You know, nobody's a perfect person, but I can go to sleep at night very well, knowing that I never mistreated anyone on my watch in 42 years.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today. And Hoda's here with me this morning because this is a sad morning here at Today and at NBC News. Just moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. It represented, after serious review, a clear violation of our company's standards. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment. While it is the first complaint about his behavior in the over 20 years he has been at NBC News, we were also presented with reason to believe this may not have been an isolated incident. Our highest priority is to create a workplace environment where everyone feels safe and protected, and to ensure that any actions that run counter to our core values are met with consequences, no matter who the offender. We are deeply saddened by this turn of events, but we will face it together as a news organization and do it in as transparent a manner as we can. That is the statement from our chairman, Andy Lack, and we just learned this moments ago, just this morning. As I'm sure you can imagine, we are devastated, and we are still processing all of this. And I will tell you right now, we do not know more than what I just shared with you. But we will be covering this story as reporters, as journalists. I'm sure we will be learning more details in the hours and days to come. And we promise we will share that with you.
NBC fired the Today Show host after a woman came forward Monday evening with allegations. Now more are telling their stories. ABC's Lindsay Davis is here with new reporting. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Robin. Some of the details that have emerged are simply too graphic for morning television. There are accusations of lewd texts and comments of Lauer exposing himself. And one woman alleges to the New York Times that a sexual encounter in his office culminated with her passing out and Lauer having his assistant take her to a nurse.
The star, with a reported $25 million a year salary, now fired.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Friday morning. I'm Matt Lauer.
Following a female staffer's allegations of sexual misconduct during and after the 2014 Olympics in Sochi. Late Wednesday, 2 more NBC employees came forward. One telling the New York Times Lauer summoned her to his office in 2001 during a workday, locked the door, and sexually assaulted her. The alleged victim says she didn't report it because she felt ashamed and didn't want to lose her job.
She says that he then asked her to unbutton her blouse, which she did. She says he then came around from his desk, pulled down her pants, and had sex with her. She says she does bear some of the responsibility for what happened, but she felt like he was kind of using his power over her.
According to the New York Times, after the sexual assault, she passed out in Lauer's office. He then asked his assistant to bring her to the nurse. Another saying he exposed himself to her in his office, then reprimanded her when she didn't engage. 2 more tell the magazine Lauer had a button under his desk that would automatically lock his office door. Variety adding, several women complained to executives at the network about Lauer's behavior, which they say fell on deaf ears.
New information is coming to light surrounding the allegations against our former colleague, Matt Lauer.
The story, a former intern for the Today Show who is claiming she had a 4-week affair with disgraced Matt Lauer.
Thank you. This is important.
And my name is Addie Zanone. In a first-person account in Variety, Addie Collins Zanone writes, I was under his spell. It was all-consuming. She kept this printout of flirtatious messages she says Lauer sent her in 2000 when she was just starting out in television. Matt Lauer took the ambitious 24-year-old to lunch, but instead of career advice, she says he took the opportunity to hit on her and insisted they leave separately so no one would see them together. When Lauer got back at the Today Show, he messaged her, meet me. Meet you where, she answered. Matt, think about this first. You have a wife. He apparently dismissed her concern and told her, dressing room. She says that's when they had the first of many trysts. Their last sexual encounter took place at the Staples Center during the 2000 Democratic National Convention, which Lauer was covering for the Today Show. She writes in Variety, he leaned over and said to me, do you see that bathroom over there? Meet me in 5 minutes. So I went. Matt took advantage of his power. It's sickening. It breaks my heart. She says she decided to come forward to quash any doubts about the allegations from other women against Matt Lauer.
Lauer's illustrious career at NBC has included plum assignments like hosting the Thanksgiving Day Parade and interviews with everyone from presidents to stars like Tom Cruise.
You're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is.
Just 2 months ago, he grilled former Fox News star Bill O'Reilly about sexual allegations that led to his own termination from Fox News.
You were probably the last guy in the world that they wanted to fire because you were the guy that the ratings and the revenues were built on. You carried that network on your shoulders for a lot of years. So doesn't it seem safe to assume that the people at Fox News were given a piece of information or given some evidence that simply made it impossible for you to stay on at Fox News?
But this morning, other clips are resurfacing too, like this sexually driven sketch.
Drink it in, ladies.
Again, Matt, really? It's the third time this week.
Former co-host Katie Couric said this about Lauer in a game show lightning round in 2012.
What is Matt's most annoying habit?
He pinches me on the
Wow!
TMZ released this video Wednesday, apparently showing Lauer commenting on a coworker's appearance on set.
Hey, Spider. Keep bending over like that. It's a nice view.
And this morning, the Today Show seeming to sever all ties with Lauer. His photo already scrubbed from their social media accounts.
For the first half of 2002, Miramax wasn't doing so great. Its relationship with parent company Disney was strained over financial concerns, it had laid off 75 employees, and its films gave the studio's worst box office performance in 5 years. Hollywood was ready to count Harvey Weinstein out. But he barreled forward with his usual hubris, believing that Miramax's fall lineup would make up for everything. And did it ever? 2003 brought that reputation to a new level. Just months after being vilified by his peers in magazine articles and derided by the Hollywood grapevine as a mogul in decline, Harvey Weinstein dominated the Academy Awards race in a way that no single studio had done in more than half a century. His projects earned 40 nominations that year. No studio had surpassed that number since 1940, when United Artists had 45 nominations. 4 of the 5 Best Picture nominees were produced by Weinstein. 3 of the 5 Best Actress nominees were in Weinstein projects.
Harvey Weinstein was the king of Hollywood, a mogul with 81 Oscars to his name. To try and understand what happened, we listened to stories like Rose McGowan's, who was one of the first celebrities to accuse him of sexual assault.
When a cryptic series of tweets from former actress Rose McGowan alluding to an alleged rape by Weinstein.
It was 1997, and she was at the Sundance Film Festival, already a star in the making. Weinstein invited her to his hotel room, where, she says, he raped her.
Skilled predators take a lion. They look for the weakest one in the pack, don't they? The one without the protection. Because there were actresses he didn't target because they had better representation or better people around them.
I'd heard of the casting couch. I thought maybe that was like a rite of passage. And I felt like if this is how other people make it, like it's really depressing and against everything that I believe in. But when you're in a more vulnerable position, you really don't have a choice, is what I felt happened. That he kind of made it seem like this was the only way that he would, and it's the only way that he would ever do it for anyone else. I felt like I said no, and he didn't even acknowledge it. I felt like I had to do it. So how is he about it? He was calm and collected. This was his, like, MO. He had a system to lure them up, ask for the massage, come out in the robe. He was just acted like it was normal.
When I got there, he opened the door and he was in an open robe. On the coffee table, he had 3 small stacks of paper. And he said, "These are contracts for my next 3 films. I will sign them today, but I want you to have a threesome with me and my assistant." I laughed. I thought he was joking. And when I started laughing, he got angry. And that's when I got scared. He started yelling at me. And he said, "You'll never make it in this business. This is how this industry works. This is how," he named 3 actresses. "This is how they got to where they are." He went on. And then at that point, the door was pretty close behind me, and I just turned and went for the door. I could still hear him yelling. Someone who is the most powerful man in Hollywood telling you this is how it works, I believe them, like that, was coming from the horse's mouth. I was like, okay, this is, not gonna work for me because I'm not willing, to go that far for it,
Like Louisette Geiss, who was invited to pitch a script at the Sundance Festival.
He said, "Well, why don't we reconvene in my office?" Well, they turn hotel rooms into offices when you're at these festivals. That's just the norm. But I still felt a little hesitant, obviously. I knew that this was a huge opportunity, and I didn't want to give that opportunity up. But at the same time, I looked at him in the eye and I said, "There's a camera right there, so I'll go up to your office and meet with you, but you're not allowed to touch me." And I said, "You have to shake my hand."
Inside the room, Louisette says things changed.
He pulled me to his bathroom and we both stood in front of the mirror, and he's like, "Just watch me." He wanted me to watch him masturbate. And finally I just ripped my arm away and he followed me out of the room saying, "Look, I can give you a 3-picture deal. I can greenlight your film. Like, this is ridiculous. This is all you have to do. Everybody does it. There's lots of other women who have done this." No woman at any stage of her life should be told that you have to do a sexual act in order to have a career. I'm sorry, but it's pretty basic. I was told that if I said anything that, he's got a team of lawyers and you don't want to do that because they'll take me down. And nobody's going to believe you.
Los Angeles TV anchor Lauren Sivan says she met Weinstein in New York in 2007.
Here I was, a young local news anchor who was kind of desperate to be taken seriously at the time. He was so warm and so friendly and so complimentary. I didn't get anything that read he was dangerous until we got downstairs.
And what happened?
He tried to kiss me, and I pushed him off politely. And that's when he seemed to get angry or annoyed and told me to just stand there and be quiet. He exposed himself, and he basically pleasured himself. And when he finished, I said to him, "Are we done here? Can I leave?" He said, "Yes, let's both leave." And he walked me back through the kitchen, and that's where I met up with a friend, and I got out of there.
Lauren Sivan was not an employee or seeking an employment from Harvey Weinstein, but she still felt reluctant to go public about him. I know he called you the next day at your TV station, didn't have your phone number, that's what you say. And how did that go?
That was so crazy, because the next day, after I fled, basically, he called my station. They said, "I have Harvey Weinstein on the line for you," and my heart sank. And he said, "I just want to let you know, I had a great time last night." Excuse me? "Yeah, I had a great time last night. I'm going away overseas on a trip. I would love to see you again, if that's something we could do." I said, "Absolutely not. I told you yesterday, I have a very serious boyfriend. Absolutely not." And I'm pretty sure I just hung up the phone quickly after. It was a very short conversation, but that was the most shocking part.
Paltrow once considered the first lady of Miramax, Weinstein's first studio, winning an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love.
Good morning, my lord. I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein and everybody at Miramax Films.
Paltrow telling the New York Times what she says happened when she was just 22, freshly cast as the lead in Emma, asked to take a meeting with Weinstein.
We had one instance in a hotel room where he made a pass at me. And then I really kind of stood up to him. I told my boyfriend at the time,
Brad Pitt,
who...
By the way, I love him for this.
I love him for this, too.
You told him, hey, Harvey just did something really weird. And Harvey's moves are weird.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Here's a guy he's like a dad to you.
Yeah, I was shocked.
When you tell Brad says, "Fuck this guy, I'm going to go over and confront him."
So what happened was I told him right away, and I was very shaken by the whole thing. And I had 2 movies. I'd signed up to do 2 movies with him.
And were you afraid that the movies would be canceled? Or
I
you would
was
be
afraid.
Yeah, sure, because this was a good thing.
And Brad Pitt, we were at the opening of Hamlet on Broadway that Ralph Fiennes was in Hamlet, and Harvey was there, and Brad Pitt, it was like the equivalent of throwing him against the wall, energetically. It was like...
Were you afraid, though? Was it really, and this, I mean, great guy, Brad Pitt, for doing that. But at the same point, too, it's your story. It's your relationship with Harvey. As most guys do, they take action.
Right.
When you come home and say, Harvey just did a weird thing to me, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't even looking for that. Like he took it upon himself to confront Harvey.
It was so fantastic because what he did was he leveraged his fame and power to protect me at a time when I didn't have fame or power yet.
Right. Wow. It moves you.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's a good person. Oh my gosh.
It was very heroic.
And Harvey was never inappropriate with me again.
Wow. I just like Brad Pitt sticking up for you.
He's the best.
Wonder what he said. Did he ever tell you what he said to Harvey?
Yeah, because he came back and told me exactly what he said.
And was he like, fuck you.
Yep.
You ever lay a hand on my girlfriend, I'm going to kill you.
He said, if you ever make her feel uncomfortable again, I'll kill you, or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
More than 80 women, according to the New York Times, coming forward publicly with accusations against arguably the most powerful man in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein.
I was able to tell this story because people were brave as hell, and they are still being brave as hell and refusing to shut up.
Over the course of his reporting, Ronan had started noticing strange things, like a mysterious car that seemed to be following him.
At what point did you say, wow, this is not just in my head, I'm really being followed?
You start to see the same people behind you on the street, and you're looking over your shoulder a lot, and you're seeing a car parked outside of your apartment at all hours, and people are starting to tell you you have to get a gun.
Ronan would eventually find out that Weinstein had hired Black Cube, a firm largely run by former Mossad agents, in an attempt to stop the publication of the allegations against him.
This is the kind of stranger-than-fiction spy tactic that was not at all fiction. It was really happening.
despite all the money and power that Weinstein wielded, it was the actions taken by some of his alleged victims, like Ambra Gutierrez, that would ultimately help take him down.
Ambra moved to New York at the age of 22 to further her modelling career, and soon after was headhunted by Harvey Weinstein for a casting at his office. That morning, it quickly became clear that while she was there for work, he was there for pleasure.
He kept saying, "Oh, so nice to see you again, so nice to see you again." And anyway, there was a moment he stared at me and asked me, "Is your breast real?" And I'm like, "What? Yes?"
First it was Weinstein's eyes on Ambra. Quickly, it was his hands.
It was first my breast, and then he put his hand on my leg and tried to kiss me. So yeah, it was very fast. Like, I couldn't even react.
Ambra was horrified and fled the office, soon after breaking down in tears and then going straight to police.
When I spoke to the police guy, I said, "Harvey Weinstein assaulted me." And he answered, "Again?" And I'm like, "What do you mean again? This happened before?"
Police were desperate to land the big fish, so asked Ambra to take a huge risk. They wanted her to wear a wire and meet Weinstein for a drink at a hotel bar the very next night.
I was so distressed, but I really want people to believe me.
And nobody's gonna believe you.
Like, it was my voice of a 22-year-old model against, that powerful person. It's like David and Goliath.
I'm telling you right now.
What do we have to do here?
Nothing. I'm going to take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink. Can I stay on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you. Now you're embarrassing me.
I'm sorry. I cannot. No, yesterday was a kind of aggressive for me. I need to know a person to be touched.
I won't do a thing.
I don't.
Please, I swear I won't. Just sit with me. Don't embarrass me in the hotel. I'm here all the time.
I
Sit
know,
with me,
but
I
I don't want to.
Please sit there. Please. 1 minute.
No,
I ask
can't.
you. Go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want
Go to the bathroom. Come here. Listen to me.
I want to go downstairs.
I'm not going to do anything. You'll never see me again after this. Okay? That's it. If you embarrass me in this hotel,
I'm not embarrassing you. It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
I mean, don't have a fight with me in the hall. Please, I'm not going to do anything. I swear, my children. Please come in. On everything. I'm a famous guy.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now.
Please come in now. And 1 minute. And if you want to leave, when the guy comes with my jacket,
Yesterday you touched my breast.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that. Come on.
Are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again. Come on. Sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
No, I don't want to.
If you do this now, you will embarrass me. No. They will call me again. Okay? I'm sorry. I promise you I won't do anything.
I know, but yesterday was too much.
The guy is coming. I will never do another thing to you. 5 minutes. Don't ruin your friendship with me for 5 minutes.
I know, but it's kind of like, it's too much for me. I can't.
Please, you're making a big scene here.
No,
Please.
but I want to leave.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
A spokesperson for Harvey Weinstein today issued the following statement in regard to the New Yorker revelations, and it reads in full. Any allegations of non-consensual sex are unequivocally denied by Mr. Weinstein. Mr. Weinstein has further confirmed that there were never any acts of retaliation against any women for refusing his advances. Mr. Weinstein obviously can't speak to anonymous allegations, but with respect to any women who have made allegations on the record, Mr. Weinstein believes that all of these relationships were consensual. Mr. Weinstein has begun counseling, has listened to the community, and is pursuing a better path. Mr. Weinstein is hoping that if he makes enough progress, he will be given a second chance.
It's amazingly brave that you managed to record this, because when you listen to Harvey in that mode, he's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. I mean, you have big, strong man in front of you, and you know that is aggressively pushing with his words, but for sure at one point is gonna push with his body.
This recording was exactly what police needed. They brought Weinstein in for questioning the following day. But he fought fire with fire, spearheading a salacious smear campaign in the media to intimidate and discredit his victim.
I had a team of lawyers, and they'll take me down.
She once filed a sexual assault suit against a 70-year-old, quote, sugar daddy.
It worked. Amber found herself under siege when she met with the district attorney's sex crimes chief a few days later.
First moment I saw her, I said, great, she's a woman. First question she asked me, were you a prostitute? And I'm like, what, sorry? Did you hear the recordings? And she's like, yeah, I heard that, but could you answer me these questions? Have you ever had a whole boyfriend?
It must have felt like that was Harvey Weinstein's own personal lawyer attacking you at that stage.
Yeah, I walked out of that room and I said inside my head, that's not good. That's not gonna be good.
And she was right. Weinstein once again turned to the dark arts, this time paying a friend of the district attorney to dig up dirt on Amber and feed it back to the DA's office. Not long after that, the investigation was dropped. Eventually, Amber caved to the constant intimidation and harassment and signed a non-disclosure agreement in return for $1 million. Another victim had been silenced, or so they thought.
For signing this NDA, they asked me to destroy every single piece of evidence of those recordings.
They underestimated you.
Yeah, big time. Very much.
Thankfully, before submitting to their demands, Amber downloaded a secret copy of the recording and hid it under lock and key for more than 2 years. Now, she's violating that $1 million gag order to share her story and this rare piece of evidence with us tonight. Her message is clear. She will do whatever it takes to show the world that Harvey Weinstein is a twisted and dangerous man.
When you were finally able to release that audio and show everyone just what Harvey Weinstein was like, how empowering did that feel?
I think that day I smiled for 20 hours straight. And me thinking more than myself of all the other women. I did something that helped others. And that's what I, was most proud of myself for doing.
With so much at stake, Ronan got a safety deposit box at the Bank of America right across from NBC's headquarters.
I put all of my reporting material in there, including this precious recording.
You must come here now.
And I put that in that vault and wrote a note saying, if anything happens to me,
former Mossad agents,
you have to get a gun. You need to get this out, and here are people you can contact to do it.
I'll never forget it. It was chilling.
Rich McHugh, Ronan's NBC producer at the time, also heard the tape.
We played it for the head of the investigative unit, and his reaction confirmed our reactions. It was like, man, if this thing airs, he's toast. 7 months into their reporting, Ronan and Rich were confident that they had enough to show the head of the news division, Noah Oppenheim. Armed with a draft script and a plan for more reporting, they played him that recording from Ambra. His reaction was incredibly jarring to me. It was almost like a deadpan reaction. It was other kind of people I've worked with in the news business who would have been practically ripping that audio tape out of my hands, or our hands, to air it that night. In the book, Oppenheim is quoted saying, "I don't know what that proves. He's trying to get rid of her."
You must come here now.
No.
Please.
People say a lot of things when they're trying to get rid of a girl like that. I'm not saying it's not gross, but I'm still not sure it's news.
When we left the meeting, Ronan and I were in the elevator, and I turned to him and I was like, something's up. That's not right.
By August 2017, in addition to Ambra, Ronan says they had an accuser in shadow, anonymous corroborating witnesses, and they believed they could convince some accusers to agree to be named. But they say NBC executives told them to stand down completely.
They issued a hard stop to reporting. They told me and a producer working with me that we could not take a single call with sources.
With NBC's permission, Ronan would take his work to The New Yorker, where he got more accusers to agree to be named on the record than he had at NBC News. His article was published on October 10, 2017. It was a watershed moment for the Me Too movement, with even more alleged victims now feeling empowered to break their silence.
Any comment, Harvey?
Weinstein was arrested in 2018 and now awaits a January trial on charges of sexual assault and rape related to 2 women. He has pled not guilty to those charges and has consistently denied any allegations of non-consensual sex with anyone. Now, in his new book, Catch and Kill: Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators, Ronan Farrow adds a new chapter to his reporting in the Me Too era.
Catch and Kill is about systems and patterns of the abuse of power.
In the highly anticipated book, Ronan writes in graphic detail an account of an alleged rape by former Today Show anchor Matt Lauer. That portion leaked last week and immediately dominated headlines.
There are not allegations of an affair, there are allegations of a crime.
But in it, he also claims NBC News mishandled accusations against Lauer.
This is about what happens when media organizations enshrine in their corporate and legal practices a cover-up culture, a set of agreements and payouts designed to conceal abuse at a company.
It's not just Harvey Weinstein. It's many people who could have done something and didn't.
It's almost unfair to talk about the bad behavior without talking about the bits of glamour and the excitement and working with all the creative people that you were surrounded with. The circles he ran in were extraordinary. Okay, you step into the room. Madonna says, this is Jean-Paul Gaultier, and these guys, they're Depeche Mode. There was something sort of very heady about the atmosphere, so it was like you would give up some of your own humility to stick in the job or to stay in the kind of life.
Harvey could be explosive, he could be the way he would verbally attack people that worked for him was vicious. It was really awful. I mean, he would reduce people to tears, but it always seemed in service of what he wanted best for a particular film or a particular project. So in a way, in my mind, I excused it. I said, well, he's just that passionate about what he wants for this movie.
Michael Apostolina was head of creative affairs at Miramax in the late 80s and early 90s.
I guess there was enough that was so extraordinary and that you were learning so much and that, you would work on something and in the next month it would be in theaters nationwide and there would be Oscar talk. So the horrible part seemed not okay, but I guess this is the price, that you have to pay.
Things moved at breakneck speed. For Bob Weinstein's assistant, Kathy DeClesis, there was little time to think clearly about what might have been happening.
We were distributing, 16, 18 films a year? It was insane what was going on there. I remember working probably 80, 90 hours a week, consistently. So you would see something out of the corner of your eye when you're running down a hallway, like Harvey flirting with a new blonde receptionist out at the front. And you're like, okay, so he's just being a weasel, cheating on his wife. But never did I ever think that there was more than that going on. He was just being kind of lecherous,
A lawsuit was delivered to the office it was disseminated verbally about what the contents of this lawsuit were, which was that he had sexually attacked or molested an intern. And it all made sense because this young woman, she had worked there for a while. She was very, very young, very eager, and one day just poof, she vanished. Another employee who I can't name pulled me aside at one point and said, boy, on this lawsuit, on this one, he's really gonna have to pay a lot this time. And I was like, this time? So we knew, everybody knew.
But never did I ever think that there was more than that going on.
You had a responsibility to do something.
I did.
And you didn't.
And I didn't.
Why not?
That's a difficult question to answer. I want to fall back on, I was in my early 20s and it was naivete, but that's not really an excuse. It's not that we didn't have a concept of sexual harassment, but we didn't know what to do with it. This is terrible, but this is what I did. It seemed shrug-offable, when people in my life found out that I used to work for Miramax, they were impressed. And I was proud of that. And now, I used to work at a New York-based film company. I'm not going to say it if I'm not asked, because I'm ashamed of it.
Harvey Weinstein has always maintained that any sexual encounters were consensual. But his accusers say he preyed on vulnerable young women, unchecked, for nearly 3 decades. They want to know how and why it continued for so long.
I feel incredibly angry that Harvey harmed so many women and that so many people supported his behavior. I think that's been the hardest thing to recognize, is that we were all duped, but duped by groups of people.
The only way someone like Harvey Weinstein gets away with what he did for so long to so many people is because there are people facilitating it around him. It's not just people looking the other way, it's people making it happen.
I think it was about business. They prioritized business over his behavior, being very immoral, unethical. It was all about winning the Oscars.
Catch and kill, lies, spies, and a conspiracy to protect predators, which he charges includes efforts by NBC News, his former employer, to stop his reporting. And Ronan Farrow joins me now. Welcome back to the NewsHour. That story in the New Yorker came out with all your reporting on Harvey Weinstein, his efforts to stop you and other journalists from reporting on it. This book builds on that.
It does, and there's a lot of threads to it. This really is about a set of systems that we've now been talking about for several years as I broke these stories about the private espionage world and Harvey Weinstein hiring former Mossad agents to go after sources and reporters. That's something where there's brand new information about it in the book. There's serious allegations of misconduct at NBC and a paper trail that suggests that there was an active effort to kill this story.
Well, and I want to get to that, but just on the point of Harvey Weinstein sending out detectives and others to find out what you and others were doing, by way of argument, a person is within his rights to protect his reputation, right? So where's the line? What is okay and what isn't?
There is a point at which, when sophisticated lawyers, in this case Harvey Weinstein's attorney David Boies, something of a liberal hero, hired some of these former Mossad agents, who in turn hired subcontractors who were chasing me, chasing other reporters, staking us out. There were multiple secret agents with false identities, following accusers, following reporters. The question is, as you say, where is the line? And I think that correctly there's a conversation happening now in response to this reporting in this book about maybe a need for more accountability. The story of Rose McGowan is an important thread in this book, Judy. And Rose McGowan had an individual infiltrate her life to the point where she thought it was her best friend, and this person was secretly recording her for Harvey Weinstein.
And you write extensively about that. But one of the central threads, as we mentioned, was what you say happened at NBC News.
The point is that this is a company that ordered a hard stop on reporting. 6 times in this book, the president of NBC News, Noah Oppenheim, orders a stop to reporting, and the book really answers why. It suggests, with documentation and a fact-checked paper trail, that this was a company that, like CBS, had a lot of secrets, had a pattern of secret settlements not dissimilar from Harvey Weinstein's own, and had a knowledge of predation within the company that was under threat of exposure at the time.
So you're referring to, in part, to Matt Lauer and what happened to him. You're saying that NBC knew there were accusations against Matt Lauer. Are you saying that's the main reason that NBC didn't want your story to go forward? Because, again, they are pushing back completely on that and saying it's not true, that they didn't have any credible charges against Matt Lauer before the day before he left.
The reporting in the book, which again, very carefully fact-checked, and NBC's denials are all included in the book. It's extremely fair to NBC, it's very measured, suggests otherwise. I personally talked to executives who years before Matt Lauer's firing were told about Matt Lauer misconduct allegations within this company, and there were multiple settlements with women who had complaints about Matt Lauer that they voiced within this company. Now, they say, in terms of formal records, these were not Matt Lauer-related settlements. That is what sexual harassment secret settlements look like. They do not say in writing, this is what happened to this woman. They are designed to conceal exactly that connection.
What are you saying overall, Ronan Farrow, about the news media in this country? Are you saying that some of it is bought and paid for by powerful interests, or what? I mean, NBC News has a reputation built on many years, so do other news organizations. What are you saying?
And look, in many ways, the book is a love letter to my fellow journalists and great journalists at NBC News who are right now anguished and asking tough questions of their bosses there, and who were supportive at every step of the reporting there. It's only executives who shut down the reporting. The fundamental point here, Judy, is whether it's AMI, the publisher of the National Enquirer, going after people on Trump's behalf or Weinstein's behalf. They did both. And that's all documented in this book. Or NBC becoming an instrument of suppression on Harvey Weinstein's behalf. You know, I document 15 secret calls between executives and Weinstein that they've now admitted did take place, in which assurances were made to kill this story. Those are the kinds of things that shouldn't happen in any journalistic process. These are ways in which the media shouldn't be deployed. My inbox is full right now of allegations, not just from within NBC, but in the broader media world and beyond. In industry after industry, these patterns of misconduct and cover-ups exist.
It's another one of those endemic, systemic, complex problems.
And also, there are more and more people speaking out and more really good, brave reporters refusing to stop reporting.
Weinstein was fired over the weekend. We now know this scandal has cost Harvey Weinstein more than his job. Late tonight, we learned it cost him his marriage. Georgina Chapman telling People magazine her heart breaks for all the women who have suffered tremendous pain because of his action.
I'm trying my best. Thank you, ma'am.
Harvey Weinstein's second wife left him. He was sacked from his own company, and he checked into a rehab clinic for sex addiction.
I'm not doing okay. You're not? I'm trying. I gotta get help, guys. You know what? We all make mistakes. Second chance, I hope. Okay?
No problem.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
We've been talking about Harvey Weinstein a lot on this show. And apparently he's checked into a rehab facility after just 1 week. He checked out. Yeah. Now, can his actions be considered a sex addiction? Is a sex addiction, you know, in the DSM? Is it something?
Right.
Yeah. Is it something that is a true diagnosis? And can a week in rehab even help a sex addiction?
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I think you can take care of a 30-year chronic problem in 4 or 5 days. No problem. Of course not. Look, listen, there's a big debate about whether sex addiction is a real thing or not. It's not in the DSM-5. It's not recognized by the American Psychiatric Association, but it's pretty much split within the profession as to whether it's real or not. I have to tell you, I've never encountered a case that I thought was legitimate. I think it's something that when somebody gets caught by their wife, they say, the devil made me do it. I'm addicted, and so let the healing begin. I just don't think it's an addiction. I think an addiction really is a physical thing to a substance or whatever. But let's assume that it's real. Because there are those that will argue that it is a very legitimate thing. You damn sure can't deal with it in a week. Because it's layered. It's layered. You've got to unpack a lot of things about why you feel that entitlement, about why you don't have the impulse control, and why you don't have the empathy. And when you're doing those sort of things, it's not about sex, it's about power and abuse. And you got to unpack all that, and you can't do that in a week. I'm about as straightforward as you can get, and I couldn't do it in a week. I could not take somebody and walk them through that in a week.
And sexual assault is a crime, not an addiction, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. You can't take somebody and unpack all that in a week.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the show on a huge day. I'm Megyn Kelly, and we begin this morning with something virtually no one in Hollywood ever thought they would hear. About 90 minutes ago, Harvey Weinstein turned himself in to New York City police, arrested, processed, and charged with rape, criminal sex act, sex abuse, and sexual misconduct for incidents involving 2 separate women. About 100 women have come forward accusing the disgraced movie mogul of some form of sexual misconduct, and moments ago, he was walked out of a New York City police precinct in handcuffs. Look at this. Look at this. What a thing to see. What a thing to see. And he was escorted into court. Joining me now, one of the first women to speak out about her experience with Harvey Weinstein. She says it was not a sudden decision. She says 20 years ago, she told Weinstein, if he did what he did to her, to any other woman, she would talk. She says he did, so she did. Please welcome Rose McGowan. What a thing to have you here today.
Chills.
I'm honored. What does this feel like for you to see him in cuffs?
It's surreal. It's real. It's both. And it's kind of like living in a Salvador Dali painting, this whole thing. And to see him do the Bill Cosby old man perp walk on the way in, so we already know what he's planning, to see him in cuffs on the way out, whether he smiled or not. That's a very good feeling.
You don't remember is that when Rose first came forward, when the other women first came forward, they did not know that he would go down. In fact, it's the same as it was at Fox, for that matter. We believed he would not go down. We believed we would do this, and possibly at great peril. And then to find out that he did was such a moment of, oh my God, wait, maybe we don't have to live like this. Maybe womankind doesn't have to live like this.
And men, and any gender, nobody has to live with abuse of power. Nobody has to live with fear. I actually didn't believe this day would come. I didn't believe this day would come. But this is a big strike into the heart of abuse of power. And this shows people worldwide, which is what I was hoping the whole time, that this cannot and will not stand.
Do you think he thought this day would come?
No. No, he did not.
Because the system was created to protect men like him.
The system was created by men like him and his accomplices to protect him. And I know right now of a woman who's sexually harassing somebody. It's gender neutral. It's abuse of power. If there were more women in power, maybe we'd see more parity on that side.
The DA in this case, Cy Vance, was accused of being a little slow to bring these charges, despite the fact that he had a woman who wore a wire and got Harvey on tape.
Amber Gutierrez, who's so brave.
That's right. And my question to you, though, is do you think that you and other women like you shamed Cy Vance into bringing these charges. That was an important piece of this.
Absolutely.
I do too.
Completely. This was not, and that's a tragic thing. It's tragic that it takes over 100 women, and that probably means like 1,000, let's be real. I mean, this man had hunting grounds all over the world, and he had accomplices and a complicity machine. He was, you know, the cult leader of Hollywood, I would say, their king. But he was really
like a
protected.
god. That's
like
what Meryl said. Like a god.
He tied with God for thanks at the Oscars. I wanted to show people that if you cut off the head of power, that it will clean house down. Instead of being activists biting ankles, I wanted to go to the head. And I think this whole time, this movement, what it is just be a good person, be human, treat others with human dignity, human respect. There will always be sociopaths and predators like Harvey Weinstein. But I find his complicity machine a lot more guilty.
Absolutely. It's been in place for years, and it's still in place. Let's be real.
Super
It's
real.
still in place, not just in Hollywood, but elsewhere, and bit by bit, we're chipping away. What would you say to him? Like, if he were watching this today, what would you say to him?
We got you. We got you.
All right, Fox News alert now. Disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein sentenced to 23 years in prison. That came down this morning in New York State Supreme Court. He was convicted earlier, of course, of rape and sexual assault.
It was a huge story and an important one in a way that was bigger than Harvey Weinstein. That was about vast systems that we are still struggling to expose.